Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
The real cost of divorce. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. Thank you for letting me take 2 weeks off. That was a much needed break. I don't think I've taken a trip like that in my entire life. We went to Croatia on a private boat, as I talked about, I guess 2 weeks ago, right before I left. And it was amazing. It's kind of tough to put into words the things that we saw, and did everything from scuba diving to fishing to just living on a basically a super yacht, if you will, and going to different towns and just experiencing all kinds of stuff. Croatia is beautiful. If you've been, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't been, definitely put it on the list. I've been to 30 countries now. I think it was 30 or 31. And that really was one of my favorite places of all time. Just absolutely amazing. And got to hit up France on the way back and spend a few days there. I've been there before. My wife really wanted to go to Champagne, France. My wife doesn't drink beer or liquors, but she will drink champagne and loves champagne. And so we went to see that, and also really fantastic. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much, but you go to these, call them a champagne house, and some of them look like a house, literally just like a nice house. And that's all you see. And you're like, how are they producing so many bottles of champagne? And then underneath, it's all, champagne has to be stored underground in a minimum of 18 months, sometimes, 15 years. And some of these places had miles and miles, literally, of underground caverns where they kept their champagne underneath their house. I mean, the whole city had this underground city. It was absolutely bonkers. I love that kind of stuff. Anyhow, back to this podcast, The Cost of Divorce. So why I was gone, there was a Coldplay incident. If I assume most people know what I'm talking about, because it went crazy viral, and it happened while we were on the ship. And, we had 6 couples, all married couples, all, kind of talking about it and talking about, just marriage in general, and, how it's kind of become not a joke, but it certainly is not taken as seriously as it was, 40, 50 years ago, or certainly hundreds of years ago, or certainly biblically, it is completely a joke. And, now it's there's memes, right? Someone gets caught in an affair like this couple did at Coldplay. If you don't know what happened, there was a couple who are both married, were having an affair at a Coldplay concert. And that kiss cam went to highlight them, and they both kind of fled, and obviously got busted there in front of everyone. And someone happened to be filming it, and it went viral. And now, these people are famous for getting caught having an affair at a Coldplay concert. And I usually start with a joke, and I forgot this one was a little bit relevant to this. Coldplay hadn't had a major hit in 10 years, and one night they made 2 singles. Dum-dum-dum. A little bit too early, but we started talking about marriage in general. And, we've had some friends who have had divorces, and, I remember growing up, there obviously been divorces forever, but I remember growing up, it was kind of shameful. It's not something that you wanted to go tell everyone about. And I can think of one person in particular. It was kind of the first parents that I remember getting divorced. And I was young, like 11, 12, but I still remember it because it was one of my really good friends. And, they wanted to obviously keep things very quiet. And it was very embarrassing, right? It's in a small town. Everyone kind of knows you, knows your business. And I remember it not being something that you were even supposed to talk about. And fast forward to today, we're only talking 30 or so years, right? Now, when men or women get divorced, they have a divorce party, right? It's like no different than a woman going out for a engagement party or her bachelorette party where they put a crown on her and a little ribbon or a T-shirt that says recently divorced, and they go celebrate it. And so look how far we've come in terms of making. I use this word very loosely, but a joke where it's just marriage is not taken as seriously as it used to. And if you look at your marriage vows, for those of you who don't know, I am an ordained pastor in the sense that I can actually legally marry someone. I mean, it's very clear that, you're saying that you're going to be with this person for life, for better or worse. We all know how it goes. And yet it seems to just be kind of like swept underneath the rug, like, didn't work out. Let's not even give it much thought and just go on to the next one. And let's have a party and celebrate it and let the whole world know on social media that we got divorced, and then it gets celebrated instead of, back 30, 40 years ago, it was kind of shamed upon a little bit. But we started talking about, just how much a divorce costs, and forget the money, right? Like the CEO of, I think it was Astronomer that got caught on this Kiss Cam, the Coldplay concert. Certainly he's going to lose a lot of money. I mean, he lost his job. So, that's at least $500,000 there, not to mention potential stock options and not, being able to get hired for at least a little while. But then again, I don't think people care anymore, sadly. But either way, it's going to cost them money, right? When you split up, there's money that will be lost. But forget the money part. We started talking about all of the other things besides money, things that I could argue are way more important, like your kids. And so I'll just read off some of the things here that we started looking at in general. So when you have an affair like that leads to divorce, your kids, so assuming you have two kids, they're 2 times more likely to drop out of school. Okay. 3 times more likely to experience a lot of violence and instability in their life, 4 times more likely to suffer from mental illness, all because of the consequences of having, a divorce. And that's crazy, right? So I'll read that 2 times more likely to drop out of school, 3 times more likely to experience violence and instability, and 4 times more likely to suffer from mental illness. It keeps going. The sons of a divorce, meaning a boy who has lived through divorce at any age, has a 35% higher chance of being divorced when they're an adult. So right off the bat, if you're a son who had parents who were divorced, your chances are 35% higher in general. Daughters, it's 60% higher divorce rate. So if and this is something the kids didn't want, right? This is not something that the kids decided to do. This was something that they didn't choose at all. So 60% higher. That kills me, is having 2 daughters. It's like, just how sad. So essentially, your marriage or your parents' marriage becomes the blueprint for your own or for your kids. And essentially, and then let's talk about the affair part. What you're teaching your kids is, vows don't matter. You can go do that kind of stuff. I know we all look up to our parents, and even though it might be embarrassing, and both these people had kids, and I'm sure they're very embarrassed, and I can imagine how much suffering they're going to have. I mean, can you imagine if you're those kids? This is a worldwide. Everyone knows these 2 people. These kids have to go to a school. I'm sure they're getting teased. They're seeing memes about their parents across the internet. I can only imagine what's going to happen to them mentally. I mean, that's just horrible. They didn't ask for any of that stuff. Kills me. And think about one guy has a daughter, and so she's learning that love is conditional, that promises can be broken, that sometimes dad chooses someone else over mom, and sadly, that girl, because I think girls are impacted a whole lot worse, she'll carry some of that and those wounds certainly into every relationship she has. And it won't be her fault. And on the son side, I mean, he just learned how men can treat women, and that they can or cannot keep their promises if they want to, and that they can honor the mother of their children or not. And this is all because of one affair getting caught on, regardless caught on camera or not. It's something that these kids are going to have to live with. It's just sad. I do believe that the spouse, regardless if it's male or female, is your biggest asset, right? your spouse, especially mine, anyone who's had to start a company from scratch or leave a job. But I think in general, just if you have a good spouse, they believe in you when others don't. They believe in you when you don't believe in yourself, right? My wife talks me off the ledge when things are tough. My wife loves celebrating my wins, maybe harder than I do. Um, yeah, it kills me. But really, back to the spouse's biggest asset, and I think your marriage is the most important investment you'll ever make, way more than your career, your stock portfolio, or even your reputation. And those are all the things that a divorce and certainly an affair can cost you. I mean, literally just give it all away. But when I started reading those stats and we were talking about it as a group, what it does to kids, man, it hit me so hard, especially when these kids don't ask for it. And no wonder that divorce rates continue to keep going up, right? We're just setting ourselves up for failure. If half the people today are divorced, and we know that girls are 60% more likely to get divorced when they're come of age and get married, I mean, what do you think is going to happen? And I remember, I won't say names, but it was two boys that I grew up with that had divorced parents and were living with the mom, and the mom was doing everything she could to make ends meet. So obviously working crazy hours and working a job, and so they would come home from school and had no dad in their life. The dad had just really kind of disappeared and wasn't really a part of the life, but which is problem number one. Problem number two is they had no supervision, right? And young teenage boys coming home and getting dropped off after school and having 3, 4, 5 hours to kind of do whatever the heck they want. You can only imagine that teenage boys start trying stuff, and stuff leads into other stuff, meaning, starting with cigarettes and then drugs and alcohol, and then, having little parties. And I watched these boys quickly start getting into more and more trouble. And because they didn't have a parent around, one, a lot of this stuff never was discovered until too late. And two, it spiraled out of control, to the point that today, people are my age, and I believe one is homeless. I mean, it's that bad. And just so sad. And the one, has been married and divorced, I think, a couple times, and, still dealing with a lot of drug abuse and stuff, all because of not having a dad in their life and having no supervision. And so I do believe there's such a cost to it. And I even debated doing this podcast because I don't want to come out preachy. I certainly do not have a perfect marriage. My wife and I have certainly had problems, and I'm willing to bet most people have. I've never met anyone who said marriage was simple. I've got a lot of pastor friends who are like, man, marriage is the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. But when you think about these stats and you think about the cost of giving up, or the cost of moving on to someone new, man, it really can kind of rock your world to say, hey, let's make sure we work this out. And my wife and I have had plenty of fights. Fortunately, never been to the point of talking about getting a divorce. But I think a lot of that is because we came from parents that are not divorced. And that was something that was just kind of foreign to us. Like, why we would have to be at the absolute end of the line to even consider that. And that is kind of the sad part I mentioned earlier. If you came from divorced parents, both the husband and the wife and the couple did, it's easier to say, yeah, my parents did it, so it's not that big of a deal. But man, it really, really is. And let's talk about the Bible. I like to obviously tie in all these podcasts to biblical stuff. I'm going to look at it right now. So yeah, marriage appears 121 times in the Bible. Remember, we talked about before, the word fear is 365 times. Ironically, the amount of days in a year that, hey, we should be fear not 365 days a year. But the word marriage, or the term marriage, appears 121 times in the Bible. So clearly there is a lot of attention to marriage. And if you know anything about the Bible and about marriage, it's very clear that we are supposed to be with this partner. And anything else, even looking at people, other people you're not married to, the wrong way, is considered a sin and obviously not a good thing. And back then, biblical times, I mean, you got caught cheating. I mean, sometimes it could lead to death. Certainly, it could lead to you being kind of ostracized from your village and your people. Is a really, really big deal that you just didn't do it. And as I said, we've come way, way, way far away from that. Now we're actually celebrating it and putting it on social media and putting crowns on our head. I mean, think about the irony there. We're now putting crowns on our head as adults when we get divorced and we have the recently divorced party. And it's a big deal. It's sometimes bigger and more expensive than bachelorette parties. It to me, it's embarrassing personally. If divorce happens, I got good friends who've been divorced. I'm not poo-pooing on that at all, but to go out there and celebrate it like that and basically telling society that, hey, this is cool. And now you got pictures out there for your own kids to see that, hey, this is awesome. This is better than a bachelor or bachelorette party and getting divorced. I think that just sets a horrible example and a horrible stage for the future generations to believe that this is just okay and what you should do as an adult. I get mind boggled every time I see it. And I just shake my head. So I hope this hits the right person. I know is a married man for 16 years, and that's still small in the big scheme of things. When you got people who are probably listening, been married 40, 50, even maybe 60 years, 16 years is still a small number, but man, I know it's a struggle. I would say something that comes up every year, of all 16 years, even the first year, right? I remember even the first year, just some of the money stuff. We didn't really have much money, and my wife had negative money. I had positive money, and even that was a tough conversation for us that very first year. Is, wait a minute, we have to now share everything, and I got to start paying off all your debts. But that's the stuff that kind of happens, and it is truly a partnership. It's not me versus you. It has to be a partnership. And now looking back, my wife and my relationship and our marriage is our best asset by far. Now we have 3 beautiful children who get to look up to us on how we treat each other and how we react. And when I see stats like that, I think of my girls. I have 2 girls and a son. And man, if we did get divorced, I mean, that's a 60% more likely chance they'll get divorced. And then their kids will have that exact same thing, and maybe even worse by then. So I don't know. I'm doing everything I can to keep our marriage intact. I know it is not perfect, and it's certainly not easy. And know that if you are having issues, it's okay. It is completely normal. Get some help. Talk it out. There's a million different ways to get help with the marriage. But I would just urge you, don't let it fail. There's just way too much at risk. And I'm not talking about just money. I'm talking about your kids in the future and so much more. So love you guys. Hopefully this was helpful, and I will talk to you on the next episode.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.